It's the Black Real Estate Dialogue. Tune in. Tune in. Tune in. Tune in.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Black Real Estate Dialogue Podcast, episode 124. A few quick announcements before we get into this week's episode. Please make sure to leave us a 5-star rating and review, as well as subscribe on whichever platform you're listening to this on. If you do leave us a 5-star rating and review, you will get a shout out on the show, and I'll read your review live for all the listeners. It helps us go up in the rankings. It helps us to reach more people and spread this message all over the world. So thank you in advance for your support. Another exciting announcement is that on Thursday, July 7th at 6 p.m. in downtown LA at Public School 213, I'm hosting a free real estate networking event. So I'll be there with Marion Lee, the past guest on the show, Mark Jones, the second past guest on the show, other guests and friends. So definitely come through if you're interested in real estate, which I'm sure you are by listening to this podcast, and you live anywhere near the LA area. I would love to see you. If you want to RSVP and let me know that you'll be there, text BRED event, BRED event to 74121 so I know that you're coming. Can't wait to see you there. All right, let's get into this episode. If you follow me on Instagram, which I'm assuming you do, if you listen to this show, I posted a headline about an article from the New York Times that was about homeowners selling their homes and deciding to rent again. There were numerous reasons for this. And so I want to have an episode just to talk about my opinion on it and my thoughts on what they could have done and different things they could have considered. There's only so much I can share on a social media post, and I really enjoyed all the feedback from you all. And so I want to talk about my side and what I think about it as well. So again, like I mentioned, the New York Times wrote an article, which I'll also link in the show notes, about homeowners who sold their homes because of the appreciation that's taken place over the past couple of years. And some of these homeowners, their goal is to rent until the prices drop, which is interesting. And something that people should think about, and that they should think about, is what if prices don't drop as low as they think they're going to drop? Something else I'm wondering about is, are they in expensive markets and looking to buy again in those expensive markets after selling? So there's a whole lot to consider, and we'll dive into that as we progress through the episode. And one thing I also want to point out, all of these homeowners exchange their mortgages for rent. Now, if you've been paying attention at all, or if you've had to look for different places to rent for yourself and your family, you know that rents are up pretty much everywhere. So in 2021, nationwide rent increased 11.3%, according to the CoStar Group, which is a very reputable source. And in some places, like, those rental numbers went up way higher. As an example, Phoenix went up by 28%, Vegas up by 28%, Tampa up by 29%. And so, rents are through the roof. So it's an interesting time to sell and then rent because of things like these. So the way I'll break it down is I'll go over each person and each case they spoke about in the article, what I think they could and what I think they could have done. So the first person sold his home in a suburb of Seattle. He had to move to Delaware for work, so he probably had to go anyway. However, in the article, it did say there wasn't a clear timeline for when he had to move. He also didn't want to be a landlord. So in his mind, I guess he's like, you know what, let me sell the property and see what I can get for it, then head to the East Coast. So here are the numbers on it. So in 2019, this gentleman purchased the property for $750K. And before selling it in 2022, he put about $100K into it. So he's all in about $850. And so he actually sold it for $1.365 million, which is great. His property saw a ton of appreciation, and obviously what he made, that just depends on fees and so forth. But, what he owed and everything like that. But, it did sell for a lot more than he purchased it for. And now he's renting in Philly for $2,200 a month, and he doesn't have any immediate plans to buy. He has been looking in some areas in New Jersey, but he doesn't have plans to buy necessarily anytime soon. And so I think there are a number of things that he could have done and considered. One of the things is renting out the property and getting a property manager if he didn't want to be a landlord. This would allow him to keep the property, of course, get some cash flow that perhaps could help with some of his living expenses or some of his rent that he's paying over in Philly and give him more options in the long term. He also could have refinanced the property, took some cash out to buy another property for himself to live in, or maybe a rental, and rent out that primary residence. Again, get a property manager if he didn't want to manage it. So that's something else that he could have done. One thing to also note, I'm not sure if you knew this, if he's single, he can exclude up to 250,000 of the profit from capital gains tax. And if he's married filing jointly, he wouldn't have to pay taxes on the first 500K. So just to recap, if he's single and he lived in the house for at least the past 2 years, and I believe even 2 of the past 5 years, he wouldn't have to pay, he would have 250K waived from capital gains tax if he's single, and 500K waived from capital gains tax if he was married filing jointly. So there's a lot of things we don't know, including if he's single, if he's married filing jointly. But those are some other things that maybe he thought about, maybe he considered. However, the article doesn't dive into that at all. So as long as he met those primary residence rules, he could have been eligible for one of those two. And that's the first person. And so, there's a lot that we don't know. I don't really know his financial situation. I don't know if he took some of that money and put into other investments. There's a lot we don't know, but I'm just going off of what we know and my thoughts on it. All right. So the second person. So this is a 71-year-old married couple. They sold a home they were living in for 35 years in Staten Island. And the reason they wanted to move is because they wanted to be closer to their grandkids, closer to their kids who live in New Jersey. And so they moved into an apartment in New Jersey. They're paying about $3,200 a month, and they're living in a luxury apartment. So, all the amenities, all the things that they probably have never experienced before. And one interesting thing is the husband spoke in the article, and he mentioned that he wanted to sell the home before interest rates rose and buyers may be a little more hesitant to invest. So they listed it for $850K and they sold it for $850K. So they got what they wanted out of it, and they were able to get closer to their children and their grandchildren, which, I understand. They're 71 years old, retired, just moving on to another stage of life and trying to be closer to their family. So, I'm not in that place, but I can understand where they're coming from. And so I'm wondering as well, like, was the home paid off? Was there any debt on it? Again, there's a lot that we don't really know. So we don't know like what they walked away with. And they also said that they're taking time to just plan and think about what they want to do next, think about their next move, if they want to buy another house, a condo, or whatever. So they're renting while they figure things out.
Are you looking for a community of like-minded individuals and access to experts in real estate?
Yeah.
Are you interested in real estate but need more support and guidance?
You know who it is?
The Black Real Estate Dialogue presents the Real Estate Investing Community. No matter how much or how little real estate experience you have, we've created a community for you because your perspective is important. All right, tell me, where's the #1 place where you can do Q&A with experienced guest speakers 2 times per month? How about unlimited access to past guest speakers' recordings? What about a private Slack channel to engage in daily discussion with everybody in the community to share resources and support each other? Head on over to blackrealestatedialogue.com. That's blackrealestatedialogue.com. It's the real estate investing community presented by the Black Real Estate Dialogue. Come join us today.
And again, there's a couple of things I think they could have done, a couple of things I think they could have considered. One of those things being, of course, renting the property out and getting a property manager if they didn't want to deal with the day-to-day. And in my opinion, their rent is pretty expensive. And so perhaps some of that rental income could have helped and supported some of that rent that they're paying, right? I don't know what the rental rates are for a house like that in Staten Island. And I also don't know if the home is paid off, which would impact the numbers, but those are things that I think they could have done. They could have also sold and purchased a smaller home or purchased a condo with a large down payment using the proceeds from the sale. That's something else they could have considered. One of the comments was that the husband mentioned, I believe, was not having to set up the backyard, not having to prepare for the seasons and things like that, which I understand. At that age, you probably don't want to be doing a lot of the hands-on work. So definitely something that that I understand. And so I think that's something they could have done as well. And maybe they just were over it. Maybe they just didn't want to own the homes anymore. Something else they could have considered is, if they have is keeping it in the family some way. And so having one of the children live in it, or grandchildren, or something of that nature. All right. So the last person mentioned in this article is a gentleman who was taking care of his father in his childhood home in New Jersey. And it was a fixer-upper. Unfortunately, his father passed on, and he just wanted to get rid of it and move on. And so he listed it for $525,000 as is, and sold it for $710,000. So he didn't fix it. He didn't do anything to it. And it sold for almost $200,000 more than asking. And he didn't want to own it because he spent his adult life caring for sickly family members who unfortunately passed on. But he was in that house for many years. It seemed like it was his childhood home. And now he's renting for $2,150 in New Jersey. He mentioned that he doesn't like the rules of the building, but he's enjoying not having all the commitments that he used to have, which I understand. I haven't been in that position of taking care of family members, and perhaps some feelings arise just being inside of that home. So I empathize and I understand that. However, for the purpose of this episode, there are a couple of things that I think he could have considered as opposed to selling the property. And one thing that is kind of encouraging is he is thinking about buying a townhouse somewhere. I don't know if it's in New Jersey or in somewhere else, but he does intend to buy something again eventually. So one thing I think he could have done is fixed up the property and sold for even more. I'm just assuming, since he put it up for $525 and sold for $710, if he put some money into it, it's possible he could have sold it for way more. And also, I don't know who bought the property. I don't know if it's an investor looking to fix and flip. I don't know if it's an investor looking to buy it and rent it out. I don't know if it's a family who's buying their starter home and wanting to fix it up. I don't know any of these things, but those folks will get to participate in a lot more of the upside, in my opinion. And so something he could have done is fix the property and sold it for even more. And again, like, he probably left a lot of money on the table, putting it at $525 and selling it for $710. I personally would have fixed it and then sold it if I wanted to get rid of it. I think he also could have sold it as is, or fixed it up and sold it and bought a house in a cheaper state. It doesn't seem like he has any family ties in New Jersey. And I believe this gentleman was about 60 years old. I don't know if he's still working or whatever the case is, but something I would have considered is selling the property and buying a home in a cheaper state, moving to another state, buying a home cash, or putting a big down payment on it to keep that mortgage low. So those are a couple of things that I would consider doing, or I would have considered doing if I was him. And I do want to point out, right, we have a limited amount of information in this article. So some things that it doesn't cover is the individual finances and budget for each person. I don't know what their liabilities are. I don't know what kind of other debt they're carrying. I don't know what kind of retirement they have set up. So there's not a lot that we really know. And also, like, it gave high level ideas about their future plans. So it's pretty unclear what their specific plans are for the future. It doesn't really share that much. So I think that's something else to take into account when somebody is selling their primary residence, and also how much they made from the sale, right? How much they made from the sale is determined by a number of factors, including how much they owed and things like that. So I'd be curious to know, all right, how much did they walk away with after all expenses? And that would, I think, give me even more conclusions to draw and more suggestions to make. And also, like, I don't know if they had debt that they paid off, like consumer debt or student loans or other things, or helping family members out. I don't know what they did with some of the proceeds of the properties. There are a number of things that they could have done, a number of other reasons why they may have wanted to sell. Overall, though, one thing I'm thinking about is, who knows how much home prices will drop, right? Home prices may drop a little bit, they may not. Only time will tell. And so I think it's a bit risky to sell a property with the intention of buying something cheaper, especially in the same market. Maybe if you go to a cheaper state, like if you're coming from California or New York, New Jersey, and you're going to like North Carolina or Alabama or something, you can pretty much guarantee that it's going to be a lot cheaper, and maybe you can even buy cash, right? But I don't know what their plans are. I don't know what their goals are. If they want to buy in an expensive market again, to me, that's a little bit risky. And I'm not sure if I would have done it that same way. And then lastly, right, this is a real estate show, but everybody doesn't want to be a homeowner, and that's okay. As far as having a primary residence, I don't think there's any shame in that. Some people just don't want to do it, and you can't force people to be homeowners. So that's my take on the article. As I mentioned, I encourage you to check it out. This is my opinion on just some of the things that they could have considered or they should have considered if they didn't. And so looking forward to your thoughts. Let me know what you think of the article. Check out the article, read the full thing. And thank you all for your comments. We got a whole bunch of comments on the post on Instagram. So thank you all so much for your support there. And that's it. I'll see you on the next episode. Thank you all again for listening to another episode of the Black Real Estate Dialogue podcast. If you haven't already, please leave us a 5-star rating and review wherever you listen to this show, and I will shout you out on the show. I look forward to hearing from you all soon.
Hi everyone, Sam here from the Black Real Estate Dialogue. Make sure to hit that notification bell and that subscribe button, and to visit us at blackrealestatedialogue.com.